Are you ready for love? Hi, I'm Marcus Holmes, the facilitator of the Love and Stuff community, and we're ready for you to join us on the next episode of the dating game. Forget all of the social distancing. Let's get up close and personal online. And who knows, you might make a heart connection that will lead you to a private Zoom room date. Inbox me now at Marcus R. Holmes or at Love and Stuff for your opportunity to connect closer while we are so far apart. Stay safe and be well. And welcome to Love and Stuff. I done made up some filters, as you can see. And I am so excited to have you here with us. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion now. I'm just checking across platforms. Aria Moody is here. Actress Aria Moody is here. One of our Love and Stuff community members, our Value Day One members. And each of you, I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion as we discuss what might be a pretty hot topic here in Love and Stuff. So I'm just checking in both platforms. Checking both platforms. There we go. All right. Kamal Williams, our associate producer, has dropped through. Thank you so much, sir. Just makeshift background. And I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion. What an interesting discussion it shall be, I hope. And thank you very much. I hope that you, the Marcus Holmes Show, I hope that you will join us. Thank you for those of you that have joined us both on all of the platforms via Restream, on Twitch TV, on YouTube events, on the Love and Stuff page, and on the Marcus R. Holmes page. I am honored to be the facilitator of Love and Stuff, the Love and Stuff community, but it couldn't be a community without you. So we invite you not to just come on Tuesdays. Of course, this is the time weekly that we come at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, but we want you to come to the Love and Stuff page and enjoy the content that we attempt to share there, and maybe some of your content. Join us also on the gratefulness journey every day. It's 3 things that you're grateful for, spoken aloud 3 times, shared with 3 people throughout your day. After 30 days, you are on the gratefulness journey every day. And in just about 4 weeks or less, our first book, The Gratefulness Journey Every Day, will be available on Amazon. So I hope that you will get it and that you will share it widely. It talks about how this gratefulness journey came to be in Love and Stuff, and some of the experiences that I've had along this journey to a more grateful life. And there have certainly been some challenges and losses. Those of you that know me understand that, probably upfront and personal, but we decided to put some of that in the book and share with you about our gratefulness journey every day, in the hopes that you will join us on the gratefulness journey every day. All right, Don, Renee, Ori, thank you for joining us. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion. I am just going to switch views, if you will, so I can see your comments. So everybody that's joining, I hope that you would drop a comment just like Dawn just did. So I know you're in the room, because now I'm going to be looking at a different view just to gauge your comments and keep the comments going. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming in, those that are coming in, and I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion. All right, so I'm looking for your drop where you are, what time of day it is there, if you're in different time zones, and also tell us what the weather is like. It surprised me today, we had 70-degree weather, and so I'm excited about that. What's the weather like where you are? Share that with us by dropping it in the comments. Hey, Catherine Phillips, Sanders Phillips, thank you for joining us. I had a laundry list of have you evers, and I loved how all of you have been chiming in on the have you evers. And I used to do that every year, but I looked in the memories today and I hadn't done it in a few years. So I thought I would rehash some of those have you evers and add some new ones to the have you evers. All right, it's 85 in sunny San Diego. Oh, I wish I had that 85 today. All right. Okay, so I am going to share one more have you ever, and it is in the form of our topic today. It's a have you ever topic. Excuse me. All right, so from our inbox, do you think churches should take political sides? Hi, Corey Reed, thank you for joining us. My pastor is a Trump supporter and talks about it during Sunday service, and I am thinking about leaving, he says. Thank you for posting the topic. Our senior associate producers here. Me and my wife have been members of the church for 25 years. 80s in North Richland Hills, Texas. Valerie Fulton Robinson has joined us. Thank you so much. I'm a deacon in the church, and the new pastor has been there for about 5 years, and he is white. It's a mixed congregation. Just recently, the pastor has been voicing his political opinion and beliefs, and some of the parishioners are not okay with that. I have communicated my feelings about it to the pastor, yet not much has changed. I'm considering leaving the church after 25 years. By the way, my wife does not feel as strongly as I do, and that's another issue. Valencia says it's 79 degrees where she is in Texas. Thank you for joining us. The congregation is 60% Black and 40% white, and about 10% of the Black people are Trump supporters, and these are his estimations as a deacon. The pastor uses the Bible to condemn Joe Biden, but he never says the names of the candidates in church. How do you feel? What would you do if you are a leader in a church and your pastor is of another ethnicity and he is espousing his support for Trump? Maybe if he's the same ethnicity, because we do have Black pastors who follow Trump, bless their hearts. And so if you disagree with the political beliefs of the pastor, do you think that tell me what you would do? I don't want to lead you into it. Tell me what you would do. That's what this conversation is about. I want to hear what you would do in the hopes that we might share this information broadly, and along with our inbox individual, others might learn some lessons from it. What would you do? And if you're interested in coming on with me, I'd love to have you. Just inbox me at Marcus R. Holmes, and I will send you the link. What would you do if you're a pastor? First of all, are there any persons who are here at the moment who have a pastor of another ethnicity, or who has a pastor who is espousing a different, who is sharing a different political view than you? Give me some likes if you're in the room. Give me some likes if you're in the room. And if that's not you, how would you handle this? How would you handle it if your pastor had a different view? Pamela Sanders has joined us. Thanks so much for coming through to Love and Stuff. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us in this discussion. How would you handle it? In this case, from the inbox, this is a deacon of the church who has been with the church for 25 years. He and his wife are members and have been longstanding members, and they have a newer pastor. Yes, senior associate producer, thank you so much. They will have they have a newer pastor, I'll say 5 years, could be new. And this pastor has, as of recent, began to, over the pulpit, share his support for Trump and use the Bible to condemn Biden, although the deacon admits he has never said Biden's name, but he feels that he's using the Bible to condemn him. This deacon has gone to the pastor and shared his concerns and those of other parishioners, but there doesn't seem to be any change. How do you think? Don says, church is not the place to push a political agenda. Good point, okay? I'd leave. There's no rule that says that husband and wife have to go to the same church. That's another whole love and stuff topic. I'm kind of waiting for it to line itself, Don. A couple of people have put that in the inbox and I'm trying to hold on to it. But that's a whole good topic. That's a great topic. I would most likely leave. Okay, thank you for that, Dawn. Catherine says, I can't stay anywhere that doesn't line up with my beliefs. For me, that's why it's important to know God for yourself. Great point. Thank you for sharing that. So it sounds like you would leave, Catherine. You would leave the church where you've been a member 25 years, even though the pastor has been there 5 years? I'm just asking. Linda Allen has joined us. Thanks for coming to Love and Stuff. And I hope all of you that are coming will click share, tag 5 of your closest Facebook friends and 5 of your more popular Facebook friends to join in the discussion. This topic comes from the inbox. There is a deacon who has been at a church, he and his wife, for 25 years. And now they have a pastor. They're in a mixed congregation. The pastor is Caucasian. They're African American. The pastor has been there 5 years. And as of late, just about during this election cycle, let's say that this pastor is starting to show his alignment with Trump as a Trump supporter. In addition, he is also using the Bible to condemn Biden. And so this deacon has gone to the pastor to share his concerns and some of the concerns of other parishioners. And so it's a 60% predominantly Black, I'll call that majority Black, maybe not predominantly, depending on how you want to look at it. 60% Black, 40% other, we'll say, but mostly Caucasian, and 10% of that Black group, this deacon estimates to be Republican. It's not right for the pastor to twist the Bible in favor of his political views. And Dawn, I want to ask you that. Have you ever experienced that? Do you see where pastors might do that, use the Bible to espouse or express, I better say express a certain political view? Okay, I'm trying to get these comments. They're not showing me. All right, y'all behave tonight. Okay, there we go. It's not, okay. Catherine, you say yes, okay. Kamal says, I left my church for that very reason. I attended a predominantly white church with a white pastor, 5 to 7% minorities. It started with the Virginia incident. He never condemned it. I feel the eyes when I come in. I feel profiled by the safety officer assigned by the police department. I'm back all year. I do bedside Baptist now. I won't go back. Kamal, you should click on the link now. You should click on the link. This isn't even Kamal's topic. He's an associate producer. This is someone else's topic, but Kamal, you know, you're perfectly aligned to come and talk to me, buddy. Come talk to me. And Janisha Mausen, I'm not sure if I enunciated that correctly, but I apologize if I didn't. Welcome to Love and Stuff, and I hope you will click share and tag some folks to join us in the discussion. White evangelicals twist the Bible all the time. We should talk about that. I wonder if Pastor Valencia is still here. I'd love for her to come and talk a little bit about that. Thanks, Don. I appreciate you so much. Michael Flanoyle has joined us. Mike Flanoyle has joined us. Thanks so much for coming to Love and Stuff. I hope you will click, share, and tag some folks. We're talking from the inbox. A deacon, 25 years in his congregation. He is ready to leave because his pastor, in his estimation, is using the Bible to condemn Joe Biden and using the platform, the pulpit, to align himself and others with Trump. Do you think that a pastor should use the pulpit to align himself or the church with a political party? Give me some likes if you think you should. All right, Mama B, I want you to come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Jay Gerald dropped the link in the comments, our senior associate producer. What would I do without my producers, Tim and Kamal? They are just the best. Wish I could pay them. I told Facebook I need some money to pay them. They got to cooperate. All right. I hope they don't ban me for saying that. You know how sometimes you get in trouble. All right. So the link is there. I'd love Valencia to join me. Catherine, I'd love for you to join me. All you have to do is click on the link. I will let you into the room right on live with me. It would be great to have you. So we're talking from the inbox. This deacon been with the church 25 years. That's a long time. It is. Married, so his wife and he both attend the church. And as of late, this Caucasian pastor who's only been there for 5 years, I'm saying only been there for 5 years in comparison to 25, okay, is as of late aligning his sermons are aligned with his support for Trump and the ideology and beliefs that might lend themselves to those that support Trump. You know, make America great again, that kind of stuff. Hopefully not stand back, stand by. I hope we ain't said that. That might cause a ruckus. And he's also used the Bible in this deacon's estimation to malign the character, the person, the platform of Joe Biden. This deacon's wife doesn't necessarily share the same passion about leaving, although her husband has talked to the pastor and shared his concerns and those of parishioners who go there about this, but there hasn't been any change. What would you do? Vivian Morrison has joined us. Thank you so much. Let's see. Do I see Valencia? Valencia, I don't see you. Come on, join me. I don't see you joining me. Click on that link. Okay. Because I want to ask you a couple of things. Margaret Louise Butler Hightower, thank you so much for coming to Love and Stuff. I hope you will click share and tag some folks to join us in the discussion. There she is. All right. And Catherine, I'd love for you to join me as well. Catherine says, sometimes we think we're supposed to stay in one place forever. I don't believe that. For everything, there is a season. For there is a such thing as outgrowing a place. When it's time to go, go. Okay, thank you for that advice. I think we've got joining us, Butler Hightower. Thank you so Reverend Valencia Etner, Pastor V. There you go. How are you?
I'm good. Let me turn the other thing down. I can't do them both at the same time for some strange reason.
We're supposed to stand one. Oh, gotcha. I don't believe that. For everything there is a season. Catherine says, I believe the church is to offer hope, deliverance, healing, deliverance. If you're not receiving what you need or not being spiritually fed, get out. Good point. Thank you for that. Catherine, I just want to ask you though, I think, you know, from my estimation, I think the deacon did the right thing in going to the pastor and expressing his concerns. I think that's important to do. And I'm glad he had that platform, because I do know churches where that would not fly, where you going to the pastor and raising your concerns is sometimes considered rebellion in some churches. So I'm glad at least the opportunity to have the discussion was there. I am concerned, of course, not that I don't think there's a season for things, but I am concerned about someone who has 25 years with the church and is contemplating leaving, that the pastor isn't more concerned about that. But, you know, that could be. Pastor V, welcome. And just for those of you that, you know, early Thursday, you want to get some V encouragement, you want to be encouraged by the V, join Pastor Valencia Etner. We call her Mama V here, because though she's not old enough to be my mama, look at how young she is. My mama wasn't a singer, but my mom entrusted me around people like Valencia, because she knew that Valencia was going to make sure that I didn't get too far away from what I was supposed to be doing. And so that's why I say Mama V. And so she's an outstanding pastor and an outstanding person. And so join her on Tuesday mornings. I wanted to say that, Central Standard Time. But Mama V, someone's talking about white evangelicals, and I know you're a part of the Christian or Central Methodist Episcopal.
Methodist Episcopal Church, yes.
And I know Richard Allen and those forerunners said, hey, we got to leave the Episcopal Church because you don't have a regard, what I call, and I got to remember the woman's name. I got it from the divinity within the African American identity, is how she called it. I'll never forget it, but I can't remember her name. And so these white evangelicals, sometimes I think people are in danger of using the Bible, you know, for political gain. But sometimes I think we find that these white evangelicals use it quite a bit. What are your thoughts about that as we delve a little more into this topic?
There's a couple of things I want to say, but let me deal on that side first, since that's where we are.
Thank you.
remember very clearly when I decided that I could never watch a particular um, evangelical pastor ever again. And this goes
Mhm.
back as far as the George W. Bush election.
Wow.
Never will I watch that person again because they said on national television that if you didn't vote for this person for Bush,
Mhm.
then a vote against Bush was a vote against Jesus.
Oh,
I was done, finished.
oh.
And it's kind of been the clarion cry for the evangelicals to align themselves politically uh, for particular things to come about. Um, they aligned themselves politically with this one, not because they believed in him, but because what he was going to do for them was what they
Mhm.
wanted.
Mhm.
Well, they're about to get that without him. So therefore, all they need is this justice, and then he's expendable for them
Mhm. Mhm.
because that's not, you know, they don't really care about him. They
Mhm.
care about their agenda. So my
Mhm.
issue with this pastor would be, you know, we all have our thoughts. I'm very social justice oriented, and it's very much. I'm very much a social justice preacher. It's in there. Okay, I'm not going.
Mhm.
I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to act like it isn't because all you got to do is go on YouTube. You'll hear it the moment you hear me. So it's fine. But
Mhm.
that's a historical thing, and I think that those are two different things for me. Someone
Mhm.
looking at it just head on may not see that, but that's not how I see it. I
Okay.
see when you use your power. I see when you use your mainstream. I feel like it's an abuse of power for you to use the church as a means by which to continue a racist mindset, even when you claim to be
Mhm.
accepting because you have a mixed
Mhm.
congregation. If you aren't ministering to the needs of that entire congregation, then
Mhm.
you might want to think about the fact
Mhm.
that you're in a particular parish, church, whatever, where there is a mixture of people. And if they come to you and let you know what the issue is, and you can't find a way to make your point without making that point, then you are doing the church a disservice. And therefore, my reason, I would never tell people to leave a parish, never tell anyone to leave where they've been for 25 years. But I think they have to prayerfully ask God if it's time to go on pause
Mhm.
until after the election, maybe.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
maybe they can reassess whether or not there is more to stay for than to leave for. Because right
Mhm.
now it's just such a hot button topic. It's so um, it's such a a heavy situation that we're in right now. That maybe prior to the election is not a time to make that ultimate decision. You might want to put it on pause. You might want to say, I'm not going to stay for right now, and I'll reassess. You know, during Advent, but I'm not doing it right now. I can't stay here right now.
Yeah. I'm going to jump to the comments and I'm going to come back and ask you this whole notion of, but part of, you're different, right? You come from the great stock of the great Roy Allen. You know, you come from a different stock.
Roy Allen, don't.
There is a part of uh, there is a part of your tradition that has in social justice this I don't want to democratization of power, kind of.
Yeah.
In a lot of churches, there is very hierarchical that people can't go to the leadership and raise these kind of objections. And I want to ask you, what is that? What is that? But let me go to the comments first.
And
Andrea says that happened in North Carolina. We originally attended a predominantly Black church with a sprinkling of whites in leadership. He said during the issue with Chick-fil-A and they're speaking up against same-sex marriage. During the 2012 election, he encouraged congregation to vote their beliefs against same-sex, all blue lives matter, and abortion. Jay appreciated it's one of the largest churches in Charlotte, and you don't have to say the name, but I understand because there is another. Actually, our inbox comes from your same region, so we won't share names. Sounds like a 700 Club statement, D'Angelo Malcolm says. That was the exact same thing at the church I was attending in Charlotte. Okay, thanks for that. All right, thank you for that. I believe, okay, thank you. Oh, Catherine says she agrees being able to approach your pastor. What is that, Pastor V, where you can't say to the pastor, I don't agree with you using the pulpit to align yourself with someone you believe is a known racist, which I agree with you. It's different than saying, I believe in equity and justice for the people of color, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I think it's different than to say some of the things that I've heard espoused
or not
by some people who align themselves with Trump.
Mhm.
So say it again. I'm sorry, I lost.
or not said. I think about that Kamal saying that when they didn't speak up about what happened in Charlottesville, it was a red flag for them. They could then begin to see. Zora Neale Hurston says there are times when I don't feel my. She said there are times when I don't. She was still in that colored zone. So I'm gonna use her words, but then be politically correct. She said there are times when I don't feel my color or when I don't feel Black. But then there are times when I'm thrust against a background of whiteness and I feel, extremely Black at that moment. And those are the kinds of things. That's what made what Kamal wrote made me think about is those times when you feel your Blackness and you feel your Blackness being on display. And so, but to get back to your question, I believe that it says something about the heart. Oh, I hate I'm saying this. The heart of a pastor. I can hear your associate producer probably saying, yes, the heart of a preacher. When they are not, when that pastor is unapproachable for whatever it is. And yes, we may walk away from that conversation as far apart in thought as possible, but we shouldn't be that far apart in heart. And we've got to be strong enough as pastors to receive the fact that everyone's not going to line up with what it is that we think is important, or everyone's not going to line up with our thought process. And we can't throw it off on God all the time, because sometimes what we're thinking comes from us. It's not some great revelation gotten from on high. And so we've got to be able to discern the difference and be secure enough to say, you know what, I'm sorry you don't agree with me. This is the direction that I'm taking the church in. And if that's something you can't do, let's continue to pray together. And let's see how God works it out. I mean, you can use biblical principles by which to deal with the conflict and to resolve it, but being unapproachable is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Yeah, and I want to kind of pivot and not quite pivot, because I think this is kind of maybe one of the underlying reasons, and maybe not. And I'll share a little bit of a story that, a personal story, but Rhonda Blair has joined us. Catherine is saying, if the church would just teach Jesus, his beliefs, his works, I don't believe there would be any political division. One commandment, love your neighbor as yourself, which is one of the things we espouse right here, Catherine. That's inclusive, all. We've been commanded to love white, Black, red, sinners, saints, etc. Where is the love? Well, that's where I was pivoting to, Catherine, because I'm wondering, because there is this theology, Catherine, that is steeped in racism, that is steeped in this supremacy and superiority theorem, that God created a superior race and that the Black people are a conquered race inferior to that superiority. So there is a different standard of love that is to be applied to the Black person or slave. And if you talk about hierarchy, maybe that standard is in place where someone of African descent can't just go and talk to the Caucasian pastor. How dare you? How dare you come have that conversation with me, considering that I am supreme? And I say that just from a personal standpoint. There was an opportunity in recent years for me to work at a predominantly Caucasian church, and they offered me about close to 2.5 times what I make. And I'm not disparaging what I make. You know, it ain't my only income. I always say it handles the things that extracurricular for Autumn. But they offered something, but in the conversation, I knew immediately in the conversation that there was a supremacy when I talked about the things in music and the hymns and the music and what would be the freedom to do certain things. And when we got into it, it was more like, well, this is, you know, we're bringing you in to do, you know, this is what we're doing. It was almost as if I didn't have a right to have a dialogue where I am more qualified for all of my years of doing this work, and that person isn't. And as I looked at the board of people, there was one person that looked like me, and he kind of cowered like, hey, this is how you do. You come in and you follow. And I wanted to say, do you know that I'm Herbert Holmes' son? Do you know that I can work in the field, but I can also work in the house with the massa and whoop massa's tail and still pray for massa and still do the music? But that wouldn't have been the thing to say. That wasn't the love. But sometimes people, some people, not all white evangelicals, I don't know that for sure, but some people from a seat of supremacy already thinks that there's a different standard by which they mete out love and grace and the Bible and everything else. So it's divided because that's in the theology.
Right.
Pastor V, what do you think?
You're hitting it on the head on the nail. And sometimes I think that some of us try so hard to fit in to that what's the word I want to use, to that ecclesiastical bureaucracy, because that's really what it is. That we fall in, as you talked about, that the person that was on the panel that looked like you can almost hear the teacups stirring when you see them. Those of you who understand what I mean by that. And so I hear people all the time say, just preach Jesus. I hear people all the time just say, if we just focus on Jesus, all of these things will fall in place, and we will, love your neighbor, love you. And I'm all for love. Please don't take this at all wrong. But I got to go back to this. And Marcus, I go too far, pull me back. In the 70s.
No, you're doing good. I'm just checking the comments. I'm sorry.
In the 70s, there was an evangelical push right after integration, or what they called integration. There was a push for the big, I've talked about this before, the big white churches, on the outskirts of Detroit. Those of you know I grew up there, to begin this little program where they pulled in all the churches from the inner city, and so that they could teach their children how to be with little Black children. And they all heard the King address that I have a dream that little Black children, little white children can hold hands and sing. And so they started doing that. Okay. And what happened was that if that had been just where it ended, if it had just been, let's come together, let's fellowship, let's share, that would be good. That would have been fine. But the indoctrination began to try to get those African-American churches to kind of fall into their fold, to kind of take them into their fold. Well, we can do this for you if you will do this. And I remember my grandfather standing his ground, and a few other pastors and people I know on this phone who stood their ground and said, we'll let them fellowship, but no, coming underneath your umbrella, that's just not going to happen. And so, and I know Reverend Haney, and I know Reverend Talley, and I know all of those were in that mix who said, no, we're not doing it. Because this is the problem. When you decide that our history and our heritage and what the church has meant to us as a people is no longer viable, then we began to fall into what they call that melting pot mindset. And that's really just an ugly shade of gray. I don't get to be who I am in a melting pot. And I do not believe that as the African American church, and I know there are people who think there's no need for the Black church anymore, but I beg to differ. 2020 ought to show us right now that we do need that place where we can find ourselves being able to walk through and to work through not only our angst for what's going on in the world, but to find some hope, something that generates some joy in us, away from the noise, away from the crowd, and away from their faces. So all I'm saying is that I hear that mindset, but if you'd have to look at it through the lens that I'm trying to share with you right now, that all that we have ever had as a people, where we could train leaders, where we could raise up leaders, where we could identify gifts, where we could celebrate gifts, where we could lift people up, where we could make sure that little Black girls and little Black boys knew they were somebody, was this thing we call the church. And when we decide that that can be diluted and thrown away or melted into something else, in that great by and by, when racism is dead, like everything else that's sin, we can shout hallelujah in the great by and see no color. But down here, politics and racism and the sin of racism and separatism and isolation and supremacy lives, and we have to have somewhere where we can be at peace in the midst of it. Sorry, tirade, but
that is that was good stuff, and it unlocks some other levers that I want to get into in just 1 second. We're talking with Pastor V, for those of you that are joining and clicking share right now and tagging people to join us in the discussion. We're talking with Pastor V out of this conversation that's been raised in our inbox of a deacon who has 25 years, he and his wife, at a church that is now being pastored by a Caucasian pastor, mixed congregation, 60% African American, where this pastor is beginning to align his sermons and speeches, and I don't want to say talks, with Trump support. And so this deacon has brought it to this pastor's attention and is contemplating leaving. Mike Filanoil says, I believe standards between the sinner and God, the pastor's personal beliefs should not come into play. Okay, thank you for that. Catherine says, I think this is why the current worldwide movement is so powerful. The movement against murdering Black men, women, because the thought is that we are less than. The movement is changing hearts and minds. It doesn't happen overnight. One person at a time is powerful. God can and will use anybody. If the church doesn't preach equality, he will use the world or carnality to bring us together. I believe that. And I believe, when Pastor B was talking about the by and by, I believe this journey to heaven's preparation is about us finding the connection to the deity within, because we're made in God's image and likeness. And it is for the majority population to find that Jesus rendered the Jew as the Gentile. He died so that we could be united to go into one place, which requires humility. If you ever thought you were the chosen one and supreme one, you got to humble yourself. So the preparation for heaven has both humility and the identity of our deity on the road to heaven. And that's how you get there. You got to humble yourself and find out that you're made in his image and in his likeness, and that we're all in that regard equal. And that's the by and by, even though, for some reason, I'm missing a little bit of your volume for some reason.
Me? Let me see.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's good now. Maybe it was just I don't know. I'm just trying to make sure they hear you, because you're such a great voice within our Love and Stuff community.
And I hope that I offended no one in what I said, it's not my apology. Trust me. I just don't want to be offensive.
Yeah. And I think what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And sometimes there's an agitation there. One of the evers that I put today is, if you have friends that really love you, they can tell you when people really are sending something in love, it might not feel good, but you will understand that it was meant in the spirit of good. So I think that they're going to be, it's love and stuff. So there's bound to be some Trump supporters, and we love you. We don't agree with you, but we love you.
Absolutely.
We love you. And we want you to feel welcomed and not feel that you don't have a voice, much like this deacon. You do have a voice, even if we walk away on different sides of the coin, as we may. But I think you raised some great points, and thank you, Catherine, is saying amen. Yeah, she's a preacher. Go and say amen again. Send your offering. No, I'm teasing. And so I want to go back to this 25 years. Catherine said, hey, when it's time to go, it's time to go. For me, and you know me, I want to see you go before. That's just me. I don't know where that's from. I can't say that's Herbert Holmes. I can't even blame that on him. But if I put an investment of time in something, I mean, there have even been some supremacist things in the employment sphere. And some of the things I've said to myself is, no, I was here first. And if I leave, I'm gonna leave on my own terms, blah, blah, blah. I am concerned about this deacon leaving this church. I don't want to tell him not to leave, but I want to tell him not to leave, Mama B, because I know you got to worship in peace, but part of the worship in peace is you got to stand up.
But that's why I said that if it's gotten to the point where your presence there is hindering your praise, then take a beat. Take a few weeks. November 3rd ends this pre-election stuff. At least we hope. Could be November 30th for all we know right now.
Right.
And return for Advent, because Advent is, the time prior to Christmas. So return for Advent. But that person may want to, especially in this virtual universe that we're in right now. And I know you all have begun going back to church in Detroit. And we just haven't down here because we're not at your point.
Some people have.
But we're still
Some
in a very universe. So you can still get your praise on. You can still, determine whether or not, you still need to tithe, if that's your belief to, the church. You've been there 25 years. Don't yank your money as your protest. That's how we typically do things. Don't do that. You don't want to lose your blessing. So do what you have been doing. But if you need to distance yourself for a season, then distance yourself, because you've done what you're supposed to do, which is to go to that person. If there's someone else that you may be able to, enlist to go to him again, because the Bible says if they can't hear you, to bring a meeting. I mean, follow the biblical order so that you can say to your pastor, look, I have followed the biblical order for dealing with this. And if after that you can make no headway, then you've got to understand that just because that's a pastor doesn't mean they're not subject to a reprobate mind on some things. Sometimes you got to distance yourself from it in order to be okay with you and to have some peace. But I would not leave. It's just like anything else, any other relationship in life. You don't leave it angry. You leave it resolute. So, because anger is still an emotion, and that means you're still investing your heart. So don't leave it in anger. Be, get through the season. And then if you decide that is not the place that you can stay, not just because of this, but because you see a pattern across the board that doesn't line up with your faith walk, doesn't line up with where God would have you to be, then you can make an exit in a way that God would be pleased, as opposed to leaving now, which will make you look like you were just emotional about your candidate. And that it would be a taint on your faith in the eyes of those you've been walking with for 25 years. You got 20 years on this pastor, in this congregation, in this community of faith. And so, weigh that thing, weigh it all the way out.
Yeah. And the next thing I want to talk about is that his wife isn't as upset. She isn't as, moved, wanting to leave, offended by what the pastor is saying. How do you reconcile that when your spouse is kind of like, and you're like at the point when you're ready to get the heck up out of there? Our senior associate producer is joining us. Hold on one second. Catherine says, everyone is different. I left a church because the atmosphere shifted. I left an employer because the atmosphere shifted. But everyone must be led by the Holy Spirit to do what you're supposed to do. God could want you to stay to make change, or God could want you to leave before he deals with them. But whatever you do, make sure you know it's God's will. Good point, Catherine, and thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And she's saying regarding spouse, pray. So if your spouse is kind of like, it's not that big a deal. He's a man. That's his opinion. Hey, don't let it ruffle your feathers. Let's chill out. Let's not throw away 25 years because we don't like what he's saying today. How do you reconcile that when your spouse is thinking one way and you're thinking another?
I'm mad at myself for what I'm thinking right this moment, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm mad at myself.
Come on, say it.
Yourself.
Come on, say it.
I'm a pastor, and I'm an unmarried pastor, and I get that. And so therefore, I don't have to deal with anyone else's thoughts about my moves in my faith walk except God, right? Mm-hmm. But there's something about that union that changes things. Mm-hmm. And she's got to really consider where he is and not be stubborn about that, because as the husband, the spiritual head of that household, she's got to listen. Mm-hmm. She's got to listen to his heart. She doesn't have to agree with his head, but she's got to listen to his heart. And if by staying there, you are hurting his heart, then you are choosing ministry over your mate.
That's good. Valerie Covert-Olson-Wady has joined us. Thank you so much. Staffy Blakely has joined us. Thank you both. I hope you will click, share, and tag some folks to join us in the conversation. We're talking with Pastor Valencia Etner. We call her Mama V here, and J. Gerald Harvey, our senior associate producer, as we delve into our inbox discussion of a deacon who is contemplating leaving the church where he has been worshiping for 25 years, because the Caucasian pastor who's been there for 5 years is now preaching, espousing beliefs in alignment with Trump. Staffy says, well, we have white members that deal with our Black issues that go against white principles. Good point. Great point.
Say that again.
Staffy says, well, we have white members that deal with our Black issues that go against white principles.
This is my issue with that. I am pastor of a Christian Methodist Episcopal church. It is a traditionally Black church. It is traditionally Black. It's Southern. It comes from the slave church that became the Christian Methodist, the colored Methodist, now the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. Its tenets are based on African-American history and tradition. And we welcome anybody and everybody, no matter their race, creed, or color, to be a part of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. But don't get it twisted. We a Black church. And you're going to hear some things in this Black church that may not align with your Caucasian sensibilities, but you knew that going in. And so the difference I see in this is, if you espouse to be a Jesus-focused fellowship of believers, where there is no tenant that lets you know that there's even a heritage, a historical twist to the tenets of your faith, then you have a right to say to that pastor, I'm a part of this church because of its equalness. If I wanted to be in a predominantly Black church, I could have stayed there. I've been here 25 years because I like the coming together of different of the differences. Don't make me feel like I am now inferior because you are espousing the words of a known racist and one who is a racially accepting. It would kind of be, that. So to me, there's a difference. There's a major difference.
Okay. And, after Mr. Trump at the debate did not specifically denounce hate groups or white supremacy, there were some Caucasian pastors who came behind that and said, but he has denounced it at times in the past. And so that's but one example of, okay, you're in the church and the pastor gets up and says, and I know that people were expecting for him to denounce white supremacy, but he did that already. And can we just move forward and move on? He did that already. And there are people who believe there's nothing wrong with that pastor saying that, and that Black people should just
get over it.
Hear it. You're in a mixed church and have your beliefs and move on. And what do you say is wrong with that? What do you say is wrong with that?
We have lived for so long in this country, built it up, our people have. And yet in 2020, we are still trying to find that place where people say, I'm going to stop insulting you all at every turn. I'm going to stop not recognizing that when I say those things, that it is a slap in your face. We're telling you, but it's time for people to listen to that. And when I go to worship God with a fellowship of believers, I should not have to feel the same sting of racial injustice that I feel in the street. And if that's what I'm going to feel when and so I get him. If that's what it's gonna feel like to come to church and worship God, that I gotta look over my shoulder, I got somebody not wanting to sit next to me, my children feel like they're treating them funny because they don't think that Black should be there, then why am I putting us through this? Why? Why?
Yeah, I think it's because we want to be a part of the great melting pot, and we're confused as to what that means. That there will be. Say it again. I missed it.
Melting pots are gray. Yes. This is what I say. I say that we have to be a part of a stew. I need to be able to be my carrot, and you need to be able to be your potato. And they need to be able to be their meat, but together we make a wonderful dish. But I should not have to melt down to be able to be with you. If I have to melt down to be with you, then it's not me you want to be around. It's whatever semblance of me you want to be a part of you. So we melted. The melting is not the key. The key is getting to be and still being able to hold on together. So it's got to be a stew. I got to get your flavor and you got to get my flavor, and it still make a beautiful thing. I'm all for stew, but melting pot means that I have to die, literally die, in order for it to be okay. No, I still want to be a carrot.
Yeah. Frito Malone has joined us. Thank you so much, Marilyn Hamilton. Thank you both for joining us. J. Gerald, I wanted to go to you, our senior associate producer. I want to ask you kind of a similar question. And I just want to first just double back and let everybody know from our topic, which is posted, I think, pinned. There is a deacon who has been with the church 25 years, and the pastor, who is Caucasian, has been and teachings align his sermons and teachings with either the elevation of Trump, support of Trump, or the condemnation of Joe Biden. And according to the inbox, he never called Joe Biden. He hasn't called Joe Biden by name, but there really are only two candidates, right? And so he's kind of using the Bible to do that. I wanted to go back to that, J. Gerald, and ask you this notion about using the Bible for your political position or gain, since you are both ministers of the gospel, ministers of love, I will call it. How do you feel about that? Utilizing this, utilizing the word of God for the purpose of elevating a platform?
Well, I strongly against it. And whether the pastor is my pastor, whether he's my ethnicity or a different ethnicity, it really doesn't matter. I shared the other day that I had to unfriend a pastor who was doing the same thing that was of my ethnicity, and pretty much calling people out and telling them that they're going to hell based on scripture because of their political beliefs. Well, we can use scripture and do the same thing on the other side or on either side, because neither one of these candidates have professed Christ in the way that, you know, that I understand professing of Christ should be. So so going further, and even as an armor bearer, I have spoken to ministers about the same subject, and my thing is this: if you preach Christ and preach that people should be able to make up their own minds and have their own relationships, then they will make a choice, whether right or wrong. It still won't be based on the scripture, because the scripture never said that we should be all Republicans or all Democrats. It says pray for your leaders. So totally against it. Well, I understand why, but the pulpit is not the place to give your political view as to which candidate should win. And that goes, and I say that goes for both ways.
And you mentioned, you know, the person that you had to unfriend is of the same ethnicity. Does it for you at all make a difference if someone is using? I hear you. Does it matter more to you if that person is using that pulpit and they're of a different ethnicity and they're espousing a candidate who has been overtly racist?
No, the only
Does that
thing
make
that
it more worse for you?
no, I would say no. Either way, the pulpit is the pulpit. Growing up how we grew up, the pulpit is sacred ground. I'll say that
Yeah.
again. The pulpit is sacred ground. The only thing that should be coming across the pulpit is Christ. Even when we delve into other topics besides elections and everything else, the pulpit is holy ground.
I hear you, and I guess my expanded thought on that holy ground is that the holy came into an unholy world with tactics to reconcile it that had to do with social economic justice and other things. So there are other layers, as I see it, to the sacred and holy. There are, on that sacred ground, there is leveraging of the deity within equality that Jesus meant for both the brokenhearted and the poor and those that needed the gospel to be rich in thought and in their execution of strategy. So I hear what you're saying, but for me, it's a little different, because if my pastor is basically saying that white supremacy is right, then what is his thought of me as a member of this melting pot, to take a word, or the stew? Is that now devaluing the carrot in the stew in Pastor V's analogy? So if I'm the carrot in the stew and he's saying, well, carrots, you don't really need them in the stew. Or he says, you really need beef because beef and its juices make the stew. Is that saying something to me about being the carrot? You follow what I'm saying? So I'm wondering if it adds a different dynamic when it's a different ethnicity, kind of aligning themselves with someone who has shown us, I believe, what he thinks about African Americans. Does that at all weigh more heavily to you?
The only thing that will weigh on me is why is he there in the first place? What's his purpose being at this church?
He being the pastor.
He being the pastor, coming to it sounds like a predominantly Black church, and then
I'm gonna say majority. 60% to me
majority.
is majority. Predominant to but okay.
Majority Black church, and to bring those views into the church and across the pulpit. Well, so I understood that although he doesn't say it, he speaks it. He doesn't say the names, but he does speak of. Okay, so why would he even bring that in that atmosphere and at that time?
Because that's who he is. It's like what Joe Biden said about Mr. Trump. It is what it is because you are who you are. And so if who you are is white supremacist, or you're aligned with the white supremacist, which I think says a lot about you, even if you don't say it, then that's what's coming up. He's basically saying we should make America great again, or whatever code words he might use. And one example, again, there are preachers who got up and said after the debate, well, the president doesn't have to again. How many times does he have to say that he denounces white supremacy? He said it several times. Well, if you have Black parishioners there, some of them might say, hell, excuse my French, as many times until every Black person hears it and understands it. You better say that you denounce white supremacy. So I would have been offended if my white pastor got up on Sunday morning and said, but how many times does the president have to say that he denounces white supremacy? If I were Herbert Holmes' child, true, I would say the word. Every doggone time that he mounts a pulpit and decides, or mounts a platform and decides to talk about it, then he denounces it. And when he refrains from doing that, when a pastor gets up and says that, to me, it is the same as him saying that carrot in that stew, going back to Mama V's example, is not as valuable to the stew.
And at that point, and so I guess this goes deeper than that, but to that point, and to this deacon's point, if this pastor continues in that direction, election season or not, I could care if it's after the election, I care if Biden wins, or all that. I cannot sit up underneath that pastor. And if anything that COVID should have taught us is that if you're not getting a full meal at the table that you're sitting at, and you're supposed to be getting a full meal, then you need to change tables. You need to get out the house. Because the walls of that church ain't worth me eating bad food and getting sick.
Yeah. And I'm feeling a little more revolutionary. I think you got to turn the table over. You got to turn the table over.
If I have to do that as I leave, if I have to do that as I leave.
That's
the only reason.
Mike Lanoyle said,
I was going to say, the only reason that I said to wait, the only reason I said to wait is because I know that sometimes we do things as an emotional, a knee-jerk response. And if you've invested 25 years in a church, you are a leader in that church. I think you have to take a couple of steps and say, and really look at, as a leader, I can make this move, but what are the residual effects of this move beyond my standing on my ground? And what young person have I invested in, have I helped to raise up, that my just running away is going to, I just think you have to,
So I'm not saying run away,
yeah,
because the first thing is, and that's why I said, if he continues down that road,
yeah,
and he keeps preaching like that, and I've spoken to him, because my first thing is I always talk to him.
Yeah.
And I, my my minister friends, they know, and my pastors, my bishops, and everybody else, they know I ain't scared to talk to any of them.
I hold it back.
And and that's why we're friends like that. Because I'm gonna, I have to bring things to your attention that you might not even know that you're doing.
Right.
And so after I talk to him and he continues, if I have to push on, I got to push on.
Right.
Yeah. And J. Gerald, everybody doesn't have that freedom and flexibility that you have, or courageousness to talk to the leadership.
Call me.
Some people don't have that freedom and flexibility to just say to the leadership, I don't think that what you're doing or saying is correct.
Tell them to call me.
That.
Tell them to call me.
Okay. Mike Lanoyle said he should say it. Mike Lanoyle says he should say it every day. Tabitha Goodner is here, and she says, how do we reconcile in the world but not of the world if we don't address this in the pulpit against the word of God? It is still our roadmap, correct? It'll guide us even in these unusual yet forecasted times. Thank you for that. Catherine says, I agree. Marcus keeps saying that what's on the inside can't help but come about. Amen, Pastor Harvey, she says to that. And Karen Tribble has joined us. And so I want to just double back to get your side of it. J. Gerald, about the husband and the wife not necessarily feeling as passionate about a move or leave. What's your thoughts on the wife maybe not being in agreement with her husband on how he's reacting or responding to this rhetoric from their pastor?
So one thing I do want to say is to Tabitha, as long as there's a way to, and most pastors do it. If you're preaching Christ, then you're addressing social injustices. There's a way to do it, and you can address any social injustice if you're preaching Christ. Getting back to your question about the husband,
a lot of people don't. I just wanted to jump in there. A lot of people don't, J. Gerald. A lot of people don't address it, social justice, as a part of, an embedded part of the platform of Jesus. Not every preacher does.
And we need to get back to that.
That's the reality.
And we need to get back to that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Not every preacher ever did.
But because
not every preacher ever did.
But
it's not every, but more did before, and were more conscious of what was going on in the world than what is going on now.
But there is a group of them that threw that away when they were told that the way to be part of the melting pot was to let go of your, this is post-civil rights. Yep. You got it. Yeah, in their minds, you got it. And so therefore, you don't have to talk about that anymore. You can just come and be brother, sister, So, yeah, we got bamboozled into throwing it away.
Exactly. So the husband and the wife.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's going to be it will be a discussion. I'm always a discussion guy, right? And it'll have to be a mutual decision with both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, like you were saying before, how does that affect my home, my wife, kids, everything?
Mm-hmm.
What's the effect, and why does she want to stay?
Mm-hmm.
you got to we got to come to an understanding also. And based on what she says, I might change my mind.
Okay. So there has to be some conversation and reconciling of why you want to leave and stay.
Yep. Conversation, comprehension, understanding before you can make that kind of decision. Yep.
Okay. Tabitha says, Pastor V, the removal of our emotions is essential because we make transitions founded on principles led by Holy Spirit. Thank you. Yes.
And where he's leading us.
Absolutely. And it might be time. 25 years may be, you might have missed your exit. And this is just God saying, now you
with this, yep. He might have sent this man there just for that.
Now that's a whole nother, you might have missed some stuff before now.
I'm just saying.
I'm sorry.
You're right. Go ahead.
Missed it. It might have already time to exit. And now you just know you stuck in traffic and you got to get off. So.
Staffy Blakely says, well, don't forget the church was used as a place of discussion and instruction, especially political issues. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, Staffy, forget that. And I think sometimes preachers forget it too. Sometimes pastors forget it too.
Yep.
I'll share this with you. So, and this is a whole other topic, probably for another day, but I was at my church longer than I should have been. My original church. I was at my second church longer than I should have been. And God put things in place so that I would move. But we'll do that on another day.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really important thing. That'd be good. Because people need to know when their seasons are up. It can be church, it can be anything. So that's a major thing that is a good loving stuff topic. When to know when your season
when your season's up.
Yeah.
Great. Staffy said, now you can stay places too long. Yep, all of you are saying the same thing. So I guess I'll have to have all three of you back for that show or series of shows on that topic.
Tabitha said, come on, this might be the exit sign.
So, right. So last point, and we're at 9:43, which has been a great show. If your pastor, put yourself in the situation, your pastor is of a different ethnicity, and he or she decides that they're going to have President Trump come and speak at your church or speak on your Facebook Live or live stream, to have him come and address the congregants. You're this long-standing member and leader of the church. How do you respond to your pastor and leadership now that your pastor has gone beyond just saying he's a great man, he's making America great again, he's done so much for Black people, all of the things that Trump has been espousing? He said, hey, he's been resurrected from COVID. Look at him on the balcony waving. Look at what a mighty God we serve. Look at how God has delivered this man. He's come through COVID in record time. And now he's coming to deliver a sermon on Sunday to tell you to make America great again through Jesus Christ. How do you respond to the leadership?
This is, I don't know if I responded.
So what
I just think I don't be there. I'm just not going to be there. I don't think I responded all at that time. I'm just not going to be there. I may very well make it really clear that we've had this discussion. You know where I am on this. So I know that you will be fine when you do not see me here on Sunday or whatever time that is. Because my only other option is to have a protest sign outside of the church. And I don't think that that's how you want this to play out. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do us both a favor, and I'm going to stay home for that.
Now, Staffy is saying, I say, let him come. How else will you know what talk against? You got to hear both sides.
But I need to be there because the face, the actions, my responses, when you're in a situation like that, and I've been there, where everybody around you is not cognizant of how that is making you feel, not only do you feel smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because you can't be bigger and bigger and bigger, it puts you in a position where you have to fight yourself to not respond. And so sometimes it's best to not be in a place where you know that you are not going to be able to sit there and deal with it. You just got to know. You got to. It's a country and western song. You got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run. You got to know.
Yeah. Tabitha says my absence will be my voice. Good point. Mike says I'm out. Protest. He says he protesting. And J. Gerald, what do you say?
My presence is my approval, and that goes to anything.
That's right.
If I'm there, I'm approving this message.
Yep.
I wouldn't be there, and second, my next question to that leader is, okay, and Biden is coming right after next Sunday to preach his word.
Yeah,
or when?
That would be me. That I'm like you, J. Gerald. I would be saying only on the condition that Joe Biden is coming.
Right.
Because I don't think you're going to give one the platform, though I don't think he should have it. But you're certainly not going to give one the platform and not the other.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't hear from both of them back to back. I don't care who goes first. I prefer that Trump goes first.
Okay. Catherine says, that's right, Pastor Harvey. My presence is my approval. Tabitha says, I do not have to be a witness and invest my time to a cause that's not in alignment. Okay, great point. Great point. And so this deacon may happen upon this love and stuff. I hope he will happen upon it tonight because he's seriously contemplating leaving. And I think you've given him some good advice, especially because his wife is involved, right? And she's not gung-ho to leave, that there should be some agreement before they move. But it certainly could be God speaking, aligning circumstance with providence to say it's the time for you to go. It could be. But if he does decide to stay, do you think in staying that is some kind of approval? Is that some kind of approval if he stays?
There are ways to stay and still disapprove. For instance, if you got a position and you're not in alignment with the pastor's vision, then you can step down from that position and yet still be a member of that church. I think what that does is that both shows that, one, your stick-to-itiveness, that you're not going nowhere. This man can't run your way. But even more so, his prayer should be, Lord, what are you saying to me? And to hear from God as to what he's actually supposed to do in this situation. Maybe, watch this.
Did you answer my question?
I did.
Did you answer my question?
Yeah. If he stayed, step down. There's ways that he can show his disapproval.
Okay.
And still stay.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there's all kind of reasons why this could be happening at this time for this man. But his prayer should be, God, what are you saying to me?
And so you don't think if he steps down, that's the way of having disapproval, even though you're staying.
That's the way of showing it, yes.
That's the way to show it. Okay.
I mean, for me, I would step down. If I disapprove of it that much that I might have left from this 25-year relationship that I've had with God and this church and this affiliation that I have,
Mhm.
then I would step down if I stayed.
But so I want to ask just to follow up to that. Your 25-year relationship is not with this pastor, it's with this church and God. So why are you stepping down?
Because I'm not in alignment with the pastor's vision.
Mm.
And do you have to be to serve God and this church?
To serve at that church and to serve God, I would have to be in alignment with his vision.
Or you
Interesting.
may be fighting. So you got to be careful that as a deacon steward, if you're a part of a Methodist church, that you are chosen. You are part of that chosen cabinet of people
Mhm.
who is working toward the vision of the church. And if you
Mhm.
can't align with the vision of the church, you should step down, even if you stay, because you can't be what you vowed that you could be, which is which is to be in support of what that pastor is doing. See, in the Black church, the deacon not always in support, so we kind of know that other side. But I'm saying
Mhm.
that what that group is supposed to be is the cabinet, the
Mhm.
group that is the supporters, the ones that a pastor can bounce the things off of and know that when it comes back, that it's in line with the fact that they've already bought into the vision. And if you can't do that, then and stay in that leadership position, then you can stay at the church, but you need to remove yourself from the leadership position. And that's in and of itself a great protest. To say, I'm not leaving. I've been here 25 years. My kids are invested. My wife is invested. She got friends here. These are the people that we hang out with, all of that. But I can't be on your leadership team because I don't agree with the way I don't agree with the vision or the road that you are taking the church down. And to stay as a leader means that I buy in, that I'm vested. And I can't do that right now. Marcus, are you frozen?
Yep.
All right, associate producer.
Oh,
You are the host now. He's coming
we're
back.
gonna we're gonna wait till he come back. There he is.
Okay. I said, uh-oh. Whatever you were saying, I couldn't hear it, I guess. I don't know what happened.
It was good.
It was good.
It was
It was
good.
good.
It was
Yeah.
good.
I think you were saying, you should not be in I'm a little more of a rebel, as you know, but and I don't believe in being in rebellion, but I believe if the leadership is not right, I believe that other leaders should stay in the right and not acquiesce when the leadership is not right. And you have to be.
So let me tell you what I said so you understand. What I said was, depending on what the role is of the deacon in that particular church, if that deacon, which or steward for my purposes, is supposed to be the cabinet, then yes, we may disagree on method, but we don't disagree on purpose. And if starting to disagree, if you are disagreeing on purpose, and that pastor is who the people have chosen, you do the church a disservice to fight in that, to be a fighter. Now, if there's a place where you all can agree to disagree and you can continue to be in leadership, fine. But if it's something this principled, you may have to step out of leadership in order to stay there, because you don't want to be seen. What did Paul say? You don't. What did Gamaliel say? You don't want to be seen fighting against, the leadership of the church. Now, you may not be fighting against God. God may be exactly where you are, and the church may be going the wrong way. And you ought to be able to say that, but you can't stay on that leadership team and say it. You got to get on the outside of it and say, look, this is why I'm not there.
Got you.
So I hear you, Rebel.
Catherine says, thank you. Catherine says, all my life I had to fight in churches. There was so much infighting within the church. Church politics are a trip in Black churches. They are. And sometimes in churches,
Purple,
leaders.
sorry.
Say it again.
Color purple mama. She said, all my life I had to fight.
All my life. But why do we have to fight in church? Why can't we go to church and find peace and healing? Church should be a safe space, right or wrong. It should be. That's a whole, I think it's a whole nother topic. I'd love to have you back for, Catherine. You're right. But as sure as there are two people, they're going to have disagreements. And sometimes if there are two egos, there might be three. And if there are three egos, you got a mess. Because some people have an ego and an alter ego that can get in the way of what is advancing the church. So, but that's a great topic. Catherine said I got thrown out of the church. Catherine, it won't be the first time I got thrown out. I sure did out of the church. I did.
But things that makes that a difficult thing for the Black church, and I'm just talking from a purely historical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When all you have, you got to recognize that coming through, the only men that were quote unquote the leaders in the town were those who were preachers and those who were morticians, because that was the only place we owned anything. Mm-hmm. And so when the church is all that we've been able to say as an enterprise that we were in charge of, where leadership was, where we could be leaders. Everywhere else, historically, we had to put our head down and bow down to somebody else because we weren't in that position. So not that, and I'm not saying that we're still there. I'm just saying there's a historical as to why the church continues to be the place where we tend to hang around even when we mad, because we're going to fight our way through, because I was here when you got here and I'm going to be here when you leave. And it's just, it's that mindset.
It's my church.
It's that mindset. Or like our Uncle JD, all of our Uncle JD used to say, silly rabbit, I'm why you're here. So it's like, you got to know what you're dealing with,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
You're absolutely correct. I think that is part of the rebel in me. And it's why I would advise this deacon, don't just walk off and don't just walk out of leadership until you know that God has spoken to you to do it.
And you
got to follow what God tells you.
There are. There's some times.
There are some times, say it again.
There's some times to turn that table over.
Yeah.
You got
all the way over.
It's time to turn the table over. Flip that thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are those times. But you do, I think you all, the most important thing I think I want this deacon to hear is that you got to hear from God, and you got to reconcile it with your wife before you move in emotion or anything, because it'll be easy in this situation to move in emotion. For all of the time and tears and dollar and talent and investment you have in building that church. And as Mama Via said, our church is where we learned how to orate and negotiate and pontificate and celebrate and ameliorate and abominate. We learned everything in our church.
You're right. You are right.
I know I'm right.
Yes, sir.
I know I'm right. I'm right. I'm right for those of us that learned how to do whatever we did. We learned it in the church.
Yep.
We didn't have to go to the world. That's another show. The stuff that we learned in the love and stuff equation, we learned in the church. Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent.
Yep.
Judge me till Jesus says you can't judge me no more. But a lot of the stuff I learned how to do wrong the right way in the church. Now, I'm not bragging about it, but I'm just telling the truth.
True.
So
we got in good trouble. We got in good trouble.
And I don't know if the trouble was good, but we sure thought it was.
We sure thought it was good at the
time.
Right.
At that time.
Right.
Howsoever, everything that we have, and now you're asking us to give it up to white supremacy or whatever it is that we're trying to relinquish it to. That's very emotional. So I think you give sage advice when you say, remove the emotion, follow the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Let him guide you and direct you. Be aware and awakened that this could be the season of departure.
Yep.
It could be the time for you to move into the greatest area of your life. You deposited, and you might be going into the greatest harvest that you've ever gone into. Whatever God has before you may be far greater than what was ever behind you. And you got to trust that God will lead you into that at the time that he would have you go. And when he gives you that assurance, sit right down and talk to your wife and say, this is the assurance that God has gave me. Let's reconcile why you feel that we should stay, so that you come to the agreement that you heard J. Gerald say. We're going to come to an agreement. We're going to reason together and come to some agreement. Now, again, I liked earlier what Pastor V said, and I just want to recap it. You might, after you've gone to the pastor, get together other people, follow the biblical way. When you have a disagreement with somebody and you can't solve it one-on-one, bring some other folks to see if you can resolve it that way, right? So follow biblical principles in having resolution, which that's another show, but follow those principles so that when you leave, you feel at peace and you're not leaving a thing angry, right? You're not exiting in anger. You're exiting because you've been released. It's been a great show. I am so glad that both of you joined me, and all of you in Love and Stuff and Twitch TV and YouTube events. I hope you will share this content widely. And I hope that you know that your voice matters and your opinions, as we're reading them in the comments as we're closing out. Tabitha and Catherine are having some great dialogue here. I love it. I love it. And we hope that you will share the content widely on being in Christendom or any organization. I will leave you with these words. I love that Mama V said, be careful of the melting pot. Be wary of it. Be awakened to anybody who is trying to get you to assimilate without having an orientation to who you authentically are. Because who you authentically are ought to be welcomed, especially in the house of God, if nowhere else. But you want to be a part of the best stew that could have ever been created, and not simply a melting pot where everything is gray. But you must make sure that for yourself, that you take a step back when you're experiencing that you hear from the Holy Spirit, that you reconcile and gain comprehension and understanding among those that would be involved in your family in a departure, and the collateral, the effect that it might have on others that you have led in ministry. Because once you leave, you want to leave without the anger or burden of thinking that you decimated something that you worked so hard to build. Thank you all for being here. Our senior associate producer, J. Gerald Harvey, Pastor Valencia Etner, we call her Mama V in the Love and Stuff community. Don't forget to tune in on Tuesday mornings with her. Central Standard Time, is it 10:45 or 11:45?
45 Central Standard Time. Thriving Tuesday Moments of Encouragement.
Central Standard Time.
Yeah.
So V Encourage with her, Thriving Tuesday Moments of Encouragement. And thank you so much. What a great show. Thank you all so much. It has been a great discussion.